Welcome to the semi-finals of the Chessable Masters. One of the semi-finals is Carlsen versus Ding. This one is Giri versus Nepomniachtchi. We're going to have a look at a Semi-Tarrasch in the semi-final. And we're going to see a gem by Giri. At the end of the video, we will look at the semi-final standings so far. And you'll be able to answer the following key points about the game. Both players have 15 minutes plus 10 seconds on the clock. Anish Giri has white. Rating 2731, Dutch number 1. Ian Nepomniachtchi has black, rating 2778, Russian number 1. This is rapid chess. The game began. d4, knight f6. c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, c5. Already this is a surprise, because Nepomniachtchi normally plays the Grunfeld. On move 2, after c4, he normally goes for g6, and then bishop to g7, these kind of systems. So after knight c3, he goes for c5, the Semi-Tarrasch, made famous by Vladimir Kramnik, former world champion. He retired last year, in January 2019. He has 21 games in this variation. It is fair to say Nepom has surprised Giri. Nepom has never played this opening with black. Now after c5, both of white's pawns are... no, again. Both of white's pawns are attacking both of black's pawns. Giri takes on d5. C takes d5, knight takes d5 and e4, getting the center. Black doesn't want to retreat, or else he's just wasted time. He doesn't want to go to b6. So the only good option is to take on c3. Knight takes c3. Taking on d4, take back, and bishop b4 check. Bishop d2, take. Castle. Why play this opening with black? I don't know. It's just so passive, isn't it? You don't have as much central space as white. Now, does that matter too much? Maybe not, because black has managed to swap off a knight and a bishop, 2 minor pieces. In return, black also has 2 pawns versus 1 on the queen side. He's got a majority. In the endgame, this might work out well for him, but we are so far away from the ending. After castle, bishop c4, knight d7, castle and b6. Black is ready to go bishop b7, attacking the center. And at first glance, black's position looks okay. Now here, white has many options. He can go rook c1, rook d1, rook e1. Placing the rooks near the middle. White can also play a4, hinting at a5. But in this position, he just goes d5. White will get a passed central pawn, but there is no support from another pawn. White gains control of the c6 square, but loses control of the c5 square and the e5 square, as shown by the blue arrows. Because of this, Nepom now goes knight c5. Whenever you push a pawn, you're always trading squares. You get the chance to control one square, but you lose control of another one. Knight c5 played, rook e1, e takes d5, and e takes d5. You may ask, why not play bishop takes d5, a perfect bishop in the center of the wonderful chessboard? Bishop b7 is the problem. If you move it back, then you're dropping the center pawn, so we can't have that. If you take, then white has no advantage. Let's get the queens off. Knight b7, the knight can come back to c5, rook's in the middle, and then we can get our pawn majority moving on the queen side. So after bishop d5, bishop b7, maybe white can just put Queen and rook on the d file, supporting the bishop, but after take, queen d6, another minor piece has left the board, which is why black plays this opening, just trying to swap down and ease the pressure in the opening. Now we get a middle game and black's okay. He can get his rooks to the center and he can get his pawns moving, a6 and b5. Back to the game. Giri chose e takes d5, queen d6. The queen is known as a poor blockader, but it's not easy for white to attack the queen. Notice the queen and knight are well placed because no white pawn can attack them. Black's position looks stable. Famous last words. Bear that in mind, people. Bear that in mind. Let's have a look. After queen d6, queen d4. Putting the queen in the middle of the board, why not? And bishop b7. Rook d1. Rook a e8. Maybe this is a strange move, because where is the other rook going? Possible, you could play rook d8. So then, you got two major pieces, keeping an eye on this pawn. It would be nice if this bishop left this diagonal, so a way to kick it would be a6, b5. For example, if you go knight e5, maybe black could play rook e8. Maybe not straight away because bishop b5. So black can play a6 first, and the game goes on. However, Nepom played rook a e8. Knight e5. You don't want to trade pieces because you've got more space, so let's keep the pressure going. Let's keep the middle game going. a6 and a3. Cool move. Because if b5, bishop a2. And now this knight on c5 doesn't have another defender. White can actually change his mind and go rook c1 attacking it. But then black can change his mind as well and go rook c8 defending it. After a3, maybe black could play knight d7. But then we can take and then the b6 pawn drops. So no. In the game, rook e7 was played, planning to double rooks. Why not? Also, keeping an eye on f7, but also maybe the rook changes its mind. It can swing to the c file. Let's see. Rook e3. So Giri is planning rook e1. But also maybe rook g3, ideas of a kingside attack. And now Nepom plays rook e8. Cut. Rook e3. Black now plays rook e8. Another option might be, let's say, rook d8. So if this rook didn't go there, then why not get the king's rook? So then you've got queen and rook on here. Knight g4. Cool move, which I didn't expect the engine to point out, because your knight sits really well on e5, so why not keep it there? Well, maybe because it's not doing anything. Now what's the idea? If you play rook takes, another trade, but that's okay for black. White can take with the knight. This knight supports the pawn on d5 with the bishop. After rook e3, black played rook e8. And pause the video to find the first tactical move. I'll give you 5 seconds. White has a nice way to crash through with knight takes f7. Wow. King takes f7 played. You've got to take the knight. And there are only two ways to take it, the king or the rook. If you take with the rook, then you take his rook, and you are winning. Now you could move the queen out of the way, but then you can just bring your knight back, and then if the queen goes back, rook e1, and you've just bagged the pawn. White is winning, you can support your knight with f4. Knight takes f7 is a very nice shot. King takes f7, and now pause the video to find a follow-up. This is the reason I wanted to go through this game. So pause the video, I will give you 5 seconds. We have to make this diagonal work somehow. So let's put the rook on e6. Wow, what a move. Firstly, the blue arrows show all the squares the queen can go to. The red arrows, the queen can't go to them. Now in the game, queen d8 was played. So let's have a look at the other options. You cannot take the rook, because after check, you move the king, and then you lose the queen. Same thing the other way. If you took with the rook, it's still going to be check, king here, and queen takes queen will be check. Now after knight takes e6 check, take, the best option is queen takes, but then this is losing. You can get the queen. Back rank is threatened, so give your king some space to breathe, and then white is winning here. Queen back to d8, and now queen f4 check. Only one square for the king. Rook takes e7, clearing the way for the diagonal to open. The bishop on c4 comes to life. Rook takes e7 played. You cannot play queen takes because d6 check. That's it. And after knight e6, you just take the queen. Notice this knight cannot take the queen because this bishop is pinning the knight to the king. So after rook takes e7, black played rook takes d6 check. Rook e6. Let's consider the other options. Knight e6 doesn't work because of rook e1. Now there's a pin on the e file. So after knight e6, rook e1 is winning. If you move the rook back, rook takes e6, take, check, king h8 and queen f7, we're good. Queen g8 will be a constant mating threat. Also, white can push with d7. White can shuffle over to e7, queen to e7, and then support it with d7. White is winning. Back to the game, d6 check played, and black blocked with the rook. Now, black is a piece up, but white has a dangerous passer on d7. And that is exactly what he plays. He maintains the pressure. You're not going to trade off this bishop for this rook. This bishop might as well stay here, so then this rook on e6 cannot move. d7 played and g6, giving the king some room. Black cannot do anything here. If black plays queen e7, so then the queen supports the rook, this is just no good. You're just going to promote. If you go b5, attacking the bishop, just go bishop a2, maintaining the pin. And then there's a nice finish coming up. If you go queen b6, it's the same problem, you promote. Black decided to give his king some room with g6. And now let's just build on the pin. Let's bring our final piece in the game. This is the piece that is also supporting the pawn on d7. But it can also support the pin with the bishop. Let's go rook d6, game over. Black resigned. So what happens now if black played on a little bit? White is going to win a lot of material. If you move the king out the way, let's take the rook. If you take with the knight, it's good to be accurate until the end. Normally, you would just play this. Rook takes knight, queen takes, and then this queen is threatening mate on the back, so you can just go rook all the way back. But let's just be accurate. After bishop takes, knight takes, let's go queen e5 check. Why not keep our passed pawn on d7? With this check, you do not have to give it away. If you move the king, then you can take the knight with check, keeping this alive. If you block, then it's game over anyway. Rook takes e6 is possible, but a nice idea is you can actually just swap queens off and then promote using the pin along the 6th rank. Yeah, the 6th rank. That was the best game of the semi-finals between Giri and Nepom. Here are the key points. This opening was made popular thanks to former world champion Vladimir Kramnik. Why play this opening? Even though black has less space, black has swapped off 2 minor pieces. Black has a queenside majority, which he can use in the endgame, but we are a long way away from that. In the middle game, there was a slow build-up with a tactic, leading to a very nice finish with knight takes f7, and then the gem of the move, rook e6. If you enjoyed the show, if you think you've got a little bit better at chess having watched this video, then subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit that bell, then you'll get notified each time I release a new video. How to support the channel, there's a donation link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end.